You know, the amazing thing about Jesus and what surprises us still today, but if you read the Bible again and again, what attracted so many people to Jesus was the fact that he would do amazing healings. And I read throughout the Bible how people who are born with something not working correctly, maybe something like your eyes, can you imagine that? Born unable to see, and Jesus comes and he touches your eyes and causes you to be able to see. I feel like that might cause you to believe something crazy is going on, right? If you see someone you knew was blind, now able to see. It says thousands of people were coming around him because of this amazing ability that he had to heal people. They didn't even know, necessarily weren't even claiming he was God. A lot of them were coming for the supernatural that they were seeing. Well, I was looking into it, and I didn't know, but I was like Googling this, and found out that nowadays we have science which can actually fix someone's eyes if they were born blind. I didn't know this, but it's true. Many people are still born blind, sometimes cataracts on their eyes, sometimes something is not working correctly for 20, 30, 40 years, and they can have a surgery and fix what is going on. Science, amazing modern science, right? Who needs Jesus anymore? No. But something was not right every time they did the surgery. Every time that they would do the surgery, they'd put everything right, the eyes would be perfectly correct, but the person who now had fully functioning eyes was still not able to see. And the doctors were just confounded by this. They didn't understand. They had fixed everything. It looked exactly the same as someone else's eyes, but they were unable to see. And after much research, much digging in to find out why, they found out it wasn't the problem with the eyes. It was a problem with the brain. You see, from when you're born until age 6, you actually develop a very key part of your brain which allows you to comprehend what you're seeing. And if you've never used that, then when you suddenly have working eyes, it doesn't matter. Everything is like a messed up painting, just flashes of light. People may be right in front of you, but you can't comprehend it's a person because your brain has never learned to understand what your eyes are seeing. And not only did this just blow my mind, but the fact you think of Jesus who heals someone's eyes, that means he didn't just fix their eyes, right? He gave them a supernatural ability in their brain to understand what they were seeing too. You think about that, right? He didn't even just fix someone, maybe their legs didn't work from birth. They didn't have to go through physical therapy to learn how to walk. All of a sudden, they jump up and are walking. Not only did it give me this amazing perception of Jesus, but on top of that, it made me realize that many times we can fix something on the outside, but it doesn't fix what's inside of us. You see, you can fix your eyes, but that doesn't mean you can see. Let me tell you, Jesus says this is exactly what happens with many of us in our spiritual lives. Many times you and I have all the pieces, the parts. They're around us. They're in our lives. We've been given them, but we're still unable to see the real spiritual life that God has for us. Many of you sitting in this room have been given a gift. You may not even know it. You have the ability to read. Many people in the world can't read. I was like, I randomly ran into this man. He had come here from the mass exodus from when we pulled out of Afghanistan. There was a guy down the street here, and he the U.S. was giving him support because he had served in the military, but he couldn't read. And so that was keeping him, he couldn't read his own language, let alone he couldn't speak English. So we're using Google Translate. I'm calling Medicare to help him try to get his health benefits because his tooth was hurting him so bad. And something so simple as being able to read. He didn't even know his own birthday, right? And that was holding him back. I think of us in this room. If you can read, you've been given a gift, right? if you've had a family that provided you with food, or you have a house to live in, you have a gift. If you have the spiritual knowledge, you have a Bible available on your phone, or maybe dusty sitting under your bed, you have a gift. Sitting in this room, many people throughout the world do not have the option to come in and even contemplate who is Jesus. But you're sitting here. I think that's a gift. You have these pieces, right? But just like the people with working eyes, that doesn't mean you can see. I think that's what I want us to look at today. There's a passage in the Bible where Jesus talks about this. I think it'll help you hopefully open your eyes to be able to see. Look with me at John chapter 8, verse 12. We've been going through this series called the I am statements. And it's all about 7 statements that Jesus said who he is. And this is key. Jesus doesn't say, I am like. Last week we talked about Jesus says, I am the bread of life. He doesn't say, I'm like bread. He says, I am the bread of life. It's powerful. Pastor Inyasa went into how that I am statement is actually linked to the Old Testament when he said, when God's name, Yahweh, I am. And how it's describing his very character. So each of these statements actually describe a piece of who God is, and not only that, what it will reveal to you and me about how he's created us. So verse 12 of John 8 says, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus' second statement that we're looking at, in order to understand who he says, I am what? I am light. I am the light of the world. Have you ever tried walking around in your home with the lights off? You think you're like, man, I've lived here for however long, right? I've been here 6 months. I've been here 10 years. You think you know how to walk around. You turn those lights off, and what happens? Sorry, helmet. You think you know how to walk, but all of a sudden you're bumping into stuff. You stub your toe. You step on the dog, right? Run into the wall. You wanted to go to the bathroom, but you ended up in the hallway. Without lights, we have a problem of being able to know and see where we're going, right? So I don't think it's an accident that Jesus says, I am what? The light. Why did Jesus say that? Right? Let me tell you something. We live in a world that is very much like your dark house. Many times you and I, along with everyone else, are stumbling through this dark room. You have no idea even where you're trying to go. You're just stumbling through trying to find a path, right? You're trying to make meaning out of it even. It's dark, so let me try to make some meaning. I'm here, I'm making my way here this way because of my family. That's what I'm doing. That's going to give me meaning. Or, no, because of my work. That's going to give me meaning as I stumble through this dark world. Or maybe because I just want to have the most fun possible, right? Fill my life, enjoy everything I can. That's going to drive me and give me meaning. But it's like you're stumbling through a dark room. And many times, just like stumbling through a dark room, despite your best intentions to have meaning and purpose, you accidentally stumble upon a really messy relationship that really messes you up. Or you accidentally fall into an addiction that holds you captive for decades. Or you mess up your finances so bad that there's nothing you can do to get out of it. You're in debt for the rest of your life. You see, we're stumbling around, and even if you found meaning in some things that are even good, I found meaning in this relationship. I found meaning in my kids. I found meaning in a fulfilling career, or in sports or education, or I found love. Right? Let me sound that. Like, I found love. Yes, now I have meaning in my life. How many of you know, and you don't have to be a scientist to figure this out, that it doesn't always fulfill? Let me say it again. It will never fully fulfill. You may get like a second where you're like, oh, purpose. Eventually you hit a wall. Maybe that person fails you, that job, that goal for your life. Maybe it doesn't, but it runs out. Even Jesus said no relationship is forever here on earth. Even the most fulfilling, purposeful marriage has an ending. And if we put all our stock in that, let me tell you, you're still going to hit a wall. But what does it mean to turn on the lights? What does that mean? Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will what? And he says you will never walk in darkness. That's a powerful statement, giving our idea here of stumbling through the dark. He's saying, no. If you follow me, if you allow me to be your light, you will never stumble through the dark. You'll never walk in the darkness. He's telling us this. He's not being, also I just want to say, he's not being like poetic and abstract. Like, oh, Jesus, he's the light, and he's the sun, and he's just the nice flowers, right? Sometimes that's how we treat Jesus' words. We're like, oh, he didn't really mean that like that. But no, Jesus is saying, no, he's saying, I am the only thing that can cause you to see where you're going. I'm the only way you can know whether or not that relationship is actually good for you. I'm the only way you can know whether or not those goals, that drive for your life, is actually going to be a blessing and not a curse 5 years from now. He's saying, I am the only way you can see what is all around you. And you can stumble all you want. Some of us keep on stumbling. Say, oh, I got you, Jesus, but I'm not going to turn on the light, right? I got Jesus, but, I can take care of myself, and then we're stepping on those addictions, and, we're accidentally going down the wrong relationships. We're walking straight into walls that promised you fulfillment. Or if you turn on the light, I brought this little light for us. Sometimes it's so easy. You just have to turn on the light, but we avoid it. We turn it back off, or we break it. Like, oh, I don't know if I really need the light today, Jesus. I think I actually had enough light. I think I can see clearly now. I remember how to get to the bathroom. I remember how to get out my house. I don't need to turn on the light today. This is where it's so important for us to understand, just like the people who have been blind, it's not enough to just have some knowledge, to have a little religious history or experience. It's not enough. You can read the Bible every day. Just like the professors at Loyola University, by the way, who are atheists, who don't believe there's a God, and they probably read the Bible more than you. Reading the Bible every day does not mean you know Jesus. Does not mean the light of God is on in your life. You can come to church every Sunday, or once a month, or on Easter, once a year. It doesn't mean you have the light of God shining in your life. Right? You can give money towards great causes. You can even give it towards the work of God in this church, but that does not mean you have God shining in your life. Let me tell you, there's many people doing all those things who clearly say, I do not believe in God. Right? What's so important for us to understand when Jesus said this whole thing about being light, Jesus is surrounded by highly religious people. The Jewish people alone were very religious people, right? They were all raised up. They, from an early age, had to at least spend some amount of time in religious education, had to at least memorize parts of the Bible, every single child. And they were required to go to synagogue every Saturday. This wasn't like an optional thing. They went every week. And on top of that, Jesus is surrounded, it says as we read this next verse, we see that it's actually very religious leader type people who are right around him as he's saying, I am the light of the world. Religious leaders who claim to know the way to get to God, who claim to know that we have it together. I have it together. I can show you how to get to God. I like these guys here, right? They look like very put together, right? Very religious. You'd be like, oh man, they probably know something about God. Like, look at that guy. He's got a staff. I don't know. Does something, right? They have the religious garments on, which would have been very significant to the Jewish people, of course, and still do. Many of these do for the Jewish people who are Orthodox Jewish. These people were raised up in religion. They knew the Bible. They had most likely all memorized the first 5 books of the Bible. Many of us have not read the first 5 books of the Bible, right? They would have had it memorized. Their life was going to the synagogue, their church, every week. They claim to know all the answers, to know everything about God, about life. People who are very confident that they are seeing clearly. Get that? People who said that I can see. I know, I can see. But Jesus is saying to them what? He's offering these people something. What is it? Light. Isn't it funny? Like, I don't think Jesus was just like saying it to them like, oh, go tell the people who need it because clearly you're good. Well, he's talking to these very religious people. And if you just read those words, Jesus, I'm the light of the world, you think, oh, that's for like the really messed up people, the big sinners, right? People who don't know anything, the pagans, right? It's a fun word. The pagans, they need God. But no, Jesus is surrounded by very religious people, people who had the Old Testament memorized, arguably more religious than anybody here in this room. I don't know about you, but I don't get that level. I don't got the first 5 books of the Bible memorized. Sorry to disappoint you. Right? And Jesus is saying to them, I'm the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Whoever comes to me will never walk in darkness, but will find the light of life. I want to show you with just a little time we have left what it means to be able to actually see. Not just have the pieces, the religious pieces, the opportunity. But what does Jesus mean when he says, I want you to turn on the light? When I want you to actually use me to be able to see. What does Jesus mean when he says that? You see, in this exact passage, he's telling these hyper-religious people that think they have all the answers, who think they can see, you're stumbling through darkness. You need me to be able to see. And I imagine that cut to their hearts. I mean, it cuts kind of to mine. It's not cut to your heart, like, you don't like to be told you need someone else. We're all self-reliant. We're able to take care of ourselves. Right? It's just a really like broken people that need someone to help them. Like, I got myself. We're so self-sufficient, we hate being told we need someone else. Or we hate being told we're doing our life wrong. Man, that's the worst, right? Doesn't matter what someone's telling you. If someone tells you you're doing something wrong, immediately your anger gets going, right? And what do these religious people do? They do the same thing as you and I do. It says the Pharisees then challenged him. The Pharisees, that was the religious leaders. The Pharisees challenged him. Here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. You know what they're saying? They're saying, you don't got enough credentials. Where's your name tag that says Dr. God? And how many of us are like, I'm not listening to that guy. He didn't go to school, right? Where's his degrees? Where's his certifications? Where's his references? That's what these guys are saying. They're saying, you are claiming all these things, and they would have already known, right? He was already causing them some problems. They were already having some issues, and they're like, you're claiming to be God and all this crazy stuff, and now you're telling us that we can't see, and we need you to help us see. Well, we don't think you have much weight. We don't think your credentials match up with your words. That's what they're saying, right? Your testimony is not valid. You're not really God. I can't trust you. And sounds funny, but isn't that how we respond? So many times, when God tells us something we don't like, maybe a godly friend tells us something we don't like. I saw this little video popped up of this prayer gathering. These two guys that do these like comedic skits. I don't know if you've heard of Key and Peele. They do these comedic skits. And they were doing this prayer gathering where they're all gathered around holding hands, and they're just praying, and they're saying, God, show us what you want us to do. God, we want to take care of the poor. Show us how to take care of the poor. And then all of a sudden, the sky opens up and a voice comes down. This is God. And they're like, oh, God, thank you for answering. I want you to do what I'm about to say. Okay, God, we'll do whatever. We were praying. We want to know how to serve you. Sell everything you have. They're all like, looking at each other, and then go and serve the poor. And then like one guy, he's like, God, when you say everything, do you mean like everything? Yes, sell everything. They all look at each other. They're like, this house is haunted. It's a ghost. Go, everybody get out. They run out of the room. I think so many times, isn't that how you and I are? God, speak to me. Shine your light in my life. And God's like, okay. Oh, no, that's not God. You don't have the credentials. I don't believe that's really God, because God would never say that about my life. Allowing the light of Jesus into our lives, here's the first thing you need to know. You're not always going to agree with it. You're not always going to agree with what it shines on in you, around you. And if you really want the light of God in your life, you have to start by having open hands and saying, Jesus, show me, truly show me everything. Because if we go in with expectations, as soon as that light turns on, it's easy to live in a house that's with the lights off. You don't have to worry about the dishes or the clothes piled everywhere, the trash on the ground. As soon as the light comes on, you're like, turn the light back off, right? That's how it is in our lives. Man, God, I don't want you to shine light on that part of my life. God, I don't think I can change that. And many times, just like the religious people, we claim we want to see, but then when God gives us the opportunity, we close our eyes. Or we say, I can't understand. I can't understand what this is. It doesn't make sense. I want to encourage you that God wants to help you walk in the light. Jesus isn't just like the light, he is the light. And when you allow him in your life, it may mean you have to see some mess. I'll say that a little differently. It will mean you have to see some mess. Some things that are not good, that are broken, that are messed up. But when you allow him in, his light brings life. Isn't that what he said? He said, never walk in darkness, and I'll give you the light of life, of real life. The beginning of this book, John, starts with a powerful description of Jesus. And as I was kind of just preparing for this, God brought me to the beginning here. John 1, verse 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was this Greek idea for something that held everything together. They didn't know what it was, so they called it the Word. It's like in Greek, the logos. And it's the thing that held everything together, made everything exist. And so what the Bible is doing is it's saying, hey, that idea of that something, here's who it is. It says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and through him all things were made. It's talking about Jesus. And what's powerful is it says, you know that Genesis story where everything was created? It says, through who was all that made? Jesus. Through Jesus, everything was made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. And in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. His life, we're just talking about life, right? Is the light of all mankind. Who does Jesus say he is? I am the light. That light is the very being who created everything. It's the very being that holds everything together. That's what this is saying. Now look at verse 5. It says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This time God talks about not what's around us necessarily, but as you'll see, he starts to talk about what's inside of us. He says the light that shines out from God goes into the darkness. And the way darkness is described, God is talking about the darkness that covers the earth. Right? He was just talking about creation. But he's also saying that the light of life is shining out, and the darkness cannot stand against it. Now, I was thinking about this, and I feel like many of us feel like we live in a broken world where things don't go the way they should. Anyone agree with that? If you don't know, then you just have to turn on your news app for a couple minutes, and you'll quickly realize the world is very broken. Despite how sheltered or protected you may be in your little circle, I believe you even find the brokenness there many times. The brokenness is spread throughout the world, and no matter how hard we try, no matter how many programs we create and money we invest, no matter how many politicians we elect, seems like the brokenness keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Honestly, with social media, I feel like we're just finding out how bad it is. It's always been that way. And now we get to see it live all the time. And you don't have to believe in Jesus to see that truth. It's not like if you walk around and try to share Jesus with anyone, that's the first thing that's going to come up. Man, this world's just so broken. This world's so messed up, right? Everyone recognizes it. Everyone sees it. Sees that something is messed up. And here's the thing that I see. It's always people who are doing the messing up. Have you noticed that? Look, I don't know. I mean, I have a couple dogs, but I've never once seen my dog be a racist. Like, he loves everybody. Immediately. You walk in my house, he will love you. It doesn't matter your skin color, where you were born, how old you are, how much money you have. He loves you. I can't say the same thing about people. I feel like people, we tend to be a little racist. We tend to judge people based on how much money they have. We look at people differently depending on what language they speak or where they were born. It's people who's causing that problems, right? I look around and I don't see the earth itself shooting people. I don't see trees picking up guns and causing mass shootings. It's people that are violent, who kill each other, who behind closed doors hit each other. I think there's a darkness that is around, and it's not just general. The darkness is actually inside. And it's easy to look around, and it's so easy to be like, oh man, look at those people on the news. But if you're honest and you look inside yourself, have you ever seen that darkness? I mean, we always view ourselves so favorably, put ourselves in the good light, justify why it was okay for me to do that versus anyone else. But if you're honest, if you're really honest with yourself, you see there's something broken inside of me. Even though I don't want to do this, I did that, and I'm ashamed of it. Even though I don't want to say those things to that person I love, I still said them. I can't control myself. There's a darkness that corrupts us. We know it, we see it in everyone else, and if we're honest, we know it's in us. And this verse, I think, applies exactly to us in that moment. It says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There's a light, and as we found out, a person who is the light. What did Jesus say? I am the light of the world, right? Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus didn't come just to change stuff out there. He came to change what's in here. Jesus didn't come just to change all the circumstances, and many people wanted him to become a king, to bring policies and change the government. And let me tell you, many people still want those same things from Jesus, but Jesus is not interested. He's interested in changing this inside of you, inside of your neighbor, inside of your family member. Look at verse 9. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. Don't you love how this just talks so much about light? And we know, Jesus says, I am the light. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. You see, Jesus was the creator, as we just talked about. He came into the world, he creates everything, he holds everything together, and he came to the very people that should have known he was God. Those religious people. The people who were waiting for the Messiah. And it says, his own did not receive him. They said, you don't have the credentials. That's what they said, right? We just read it. We don't know who you are. But unexpectedly, look at what it says, verse 12. Yet all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. And he clarifies, it's not children like we think of, born of natural descent or of human decision, a husband's will, but born of God. Here's the second thing that the light of God does. It changes your roots. Y'all know what roots are? It's where you grew up from. Yeah. It holds you in the ground, right? And many of us have some broken roots. Damage done to us from our family members. Parents that were not perfect or maybe very far from perfect. Grandparents that were not perfect or far from perfect. Generational cycles that have held us in bondage. And what I think is powerful is Jesus is saying, I came into the religious people, but they didn't want me. But there were some who did. And when they received me, it changed their very identity. It says it changed who that person's parents are. You know, I'm very pro counseling, and much of the work that counseling does is it allows you to actually process and heal from damage that was done to you by other people. Right? Many times we got to process some of the damage maybe we've done ourselves, to ourselves. But this is another level of counseling. This is God saying, I'm going to actually give you new family. I'm going to actually change where you come from. I'm going to change who you say has the biggest effect on my life. Because it's no longer your earthly father who's going to have the biggest effect on your life. It's no longer your earthly mother who's going to have the biggest effect on your life. You're now going to be my child, a child of God. Let me tell you, when that light shines on your life, because that's what all this is in that context, right? It's saying the light that shines out, and that some didn't want to receive it, but those who did were reborn. The light of God, real light, not just the religious pieces, changes your very core and identity. You know, many of us hang on to our old identity. We hang on to our old stuff. We refuse to turn on that light. But what Jesus is saying here is, no. I want to give you something brand new. I want to give you a whole new identity. And again, it's not being born like a human birth. It's a spiritual rebirth. Any of you ever met someone that's like spiritually reborn? And it just is like overflowing. You know? Maybe at one point you were like that. Maybe you're like that right now. I feel like when God really comes in and rebirths you, you're just like, I'm a new person. The old things don't have hold on you anymore. But so many times what happens is we kind of like slip back, right? We like, well, fire dims down. I was passionate for a season. And what we don't know is we're slowly just turning that light off. We stop really living in the light of our new identity, and we go back to living in our old identity. We start stumbling through the dark again. We start living in the way that the world shaped us to be. Maybe even great parents, but we're still broken sinners who messed up stuff in us. And God is telling you this morning, you don't have to live like that. I want you to live in the new light. The light that shines on you and gives you a new identity. You don't have to stumble through the dark anymore. You're part of a new family, right? The whole New Testament talks about this, how you're now a part of the family of God. What was that? Joy. Joy. Yes. Amen. You know, the last thing I want us to look at is John 5. These 3 sections in John just talk about so much light. John 5:33. Chan is here. You've sent to John, and he has testified to the truth. He's talking about John the Baptist. John the Baptist was the man who went before Jesus proclaiming who he was. He's this guy that was crazy. Literally everybody thought he was crazy. He would eat bugs, and he wore like rough clothing on purpose, like just because, you know. He's like the original like person that like does all those crazy, you know, live outside and live off the land type people, right? And he was doing that. He's living down by the river, and people come to him, and he would preach to them repentance, be like, what you're living does not match up with what you believe, right? Everything we've been talking about. And a lot of people were repenting. They were all repenting and getting baptized by John the Baptist. He had this huge following. So they went to John, and they're like, hey, what do you think about this Jesus guy? very famously, he points to them, right? Even as his followers are leaving, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, John says, hey, I am okay with becoming less because Jesus has to become more, right? And so, here's Jesus. He's talking to these religious leaders again. And he says, you sent to John, and he has testified to the truth. Not that I accept human testimony, but I mention it that you may be saved. He's like, man, my goal is that you would know the truth. And if it means that you just believe John the Baptist over top of me, God himself, okay. Anything so you can be saved. And he says, but John was a lamp that burned and gave light. Remember the light? It was a lamp. It wasn't the light. It was a lamp, and it shone light. And you chose for a time to enjoy his light. There's this move of repentance, right? Almost like a revival. John had that light in him, and so much so that even when the people who were like following him and giving him likes left, he was like, oh, all for the glory of Jesus, right? He's shining that light. And so Jesus says, you think John was great? He was. His light was pretty great, but the light I'm shining is even better. He says, man, I have testimony weightier than that of John. He's saying, I have a light that is so much greater than that little light that you saw of John. This man who was bringing revival. It says, for the works that the Father has given me to finish, the very works that I'm doing testify that the Father has sent me. He's saying the fact that I am healing people who are blind, the fact that I am creating food out of nothing, the fact that I can cause someone who has never walked in their whole life to be able to walk. These things are showing you that me and the Father are one, that I am Jesus. The fact that I can cause someone not only fix their eyes, but cause their brain to be able to understand what they're seeing. I am God. Just think about that. This man didn't just do something that a doctor today did. He did a miraculous healing to the whole brain so someone could see. The Father who sent me as himself testified concerning me. You've never heard his voice nor seen his form, nor does this world dwell in you, for you do not believe the one he sent. Here's the final warning, I would say, about the lights. He's talking to these religious people who have had so many opportunities, saw the light of John, saw the testimonies of the miracles of Jesus. Jesus has done amazing things in front of them. And he says, you don't even see it. You deny that God is present. Verse 39, you study the scriptures diligently because you think that in them you have eternal life. These are the very scriptures that testify about me, yet you refuse to come to me to have life. We've looked at this before. I never realized it's in this context of light. The light of John the Baptist and then the brighter light of Jesus. And what God is saying is, all those things that have happened in your life, those little miracles, the reason you're still alive, you're sitting here, has been to lead you to Jesus. But many times, we get stuck halfway. Many of us start on a journey towards Jesus, the light gets turned on, but then we turn away. That's what Jesus is saying here. He's saying, man, you've read the Bible, you've seen the miracles. For you sitting here, maybe you had a godly influence, maybe a parent who prayed for you. Maybe you had a friend who just wouldn't stop bugging you about going to church. Or maybe just some crazy person on the street who gave you a flyer and you read it and it started something in you that started you seeking after God. I don't know your story, you do, but there's a reason you're sitting in this room. Well, let me tell you, you can so easily be on this journey and then walk away. If these religious people who had all of this breath of life coming at them could easily say, I don't believe you're God. The very people who he says study the scriptures every day looking for God, and then God stands in front of them and they say, nope, doesn't pass the test. How much more you and I think this is the final thing about light is the light of God has to lead you to Jesus. It always is going that direction. It's not like it's perfect, like you're going to make the perfect steps all the way. But as the light slowly turns more and more on in your life, you start to see more and more stuff that has to change or have to add in or change your direction. And you keep going, but it's not for you just to have a better life. It's not for you to look better than other people or have the religious knowledge. But it's always, always to be able to recognize and see Jesus. And if you miss Jesus, you miss everything. You can be the most religious person. You can look the part. Everybody can look to you and say, man, they've got their life together, but you missed what matters the most. I want to invite you to stand with me, invite the worship team up. And I want us just to close with just this last song of worship. Because I really believe that this is the application. It's why you're here. It's not to put on the show, but it's to actually connect with Jesus. And we're just going to have space as we sing this. I want you to connect truly from your heart with God, to be honest with him. You know, not caring everyone around you what they think. Some of us, we don't sing because I don't want my neighbor to hear my voice. Some of us sing very loud because we want our neighbors to hear our voice. Like, oh, I'm such a good singer. Should invite me on the worship team. I see some of you. I see some of you. Keep failing the worship exam, but keep coming back. You know, but the reason you're here is really for Jesus. A lot of people say the audience of one, right? It's none of these people. It's not me, none of us. It's really Jesus. And when we sing these words, worship, it's this funny thing. Nowhere else in your life do you gather and sing song in a group of people you like don't know everybody, right? We're all singing here. But it's not about us. It's about Jesus. He's the light. He's the one that is guiding us. And so as you sing, I want you to focus on him. Sing these words and sing them as if you are singing it right to Jesus. He's the one listening. And believe me, he is. Corey, would you lead us in this song?